Hello and welcome to EMS at Sea Level, from my home to yours. Today's guest is Misha, President and CEO of MacroFab. Before we get into the questions, Misha, can you just give me a 2-minute introduction to you and to MacroFab for anybody that's unaware of your company?
Sure. Phil, thanks. By the way, thanks for having me. Glad to join you here. MacroFab helps our customers build electronics in a much better way. And we do this by turning manufacturing into a cloud resource. So we have a large network of factories that we let our customers tap into. And the experience for those customers couldn't be more different than traditional manufacturing. It's 100% digital, so it starts by digitizing their assets, and we turn every job into a digitized representation of what we're going to build for them. And what that lets us do is place their job on any one of our 50 factories in our network, which means that a lot of the world has been going through a lot of turbulence lately, and there's been supply chain disruptions and a lot of delays. Our customers see very little of that because we have so much optionality in our factory network. So we haven't had any customers get seriously affected, and a part of it is because they're using a software platform to ensure that their production is done right. And we build electronics, so we're one of the few companies that can do something like that. And I really think that's going to be the way of the future. Eventually, I think more and more of our manufacturing is going to look like a cloud service as opposed to a factory. Your products are obviously going to get built in a factory of some sort, but ultimately everything we interact with today is a digital platform, and we're bringing that to the electronics world.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that a little bit more when we look at the kind of future state of supply chains. But in the meantime, kind of talk me through the last month or two and how you saw that impact and what you had to do to manage that and how you overcame those challenges and mitigated those for you and for your customers. And obviously, recently you've had the the kind of workplace restrictions on top of the supply and demand disruptions.
Yeah, for us, the coronavirus triage has been more than a couple of months. It's been more like 4 to 5 months because we've been tracking it ever since the initial news reports hit. Even though we manufacture for our customers and our factories are primarily in North America, as you can imagine, the supply chain is global. So as soon as we started to see delays in the supply chain, it started to have some impact on our customers. And it wasn't massive disruption as much as it was just delays and material sourcing. If our customers order plastics from China, for example, then that got delayed as there were rolling shutdowns in factories in China. A lot of our printed circuit boards come from Taiwan, and some of them come from mainland China. So, initially we had a plan just to get through the couple of weeks of disruption we normally see with the Lunar New Year. And, to us, it looked like there was a Lunar New Year where everything goes upside down with the global supply chain, and it really hasn't got back to normal since then. So, so that's what the first couple of months were like. And, for a while it was just delays. And obviously, over the last 2 months, the impact's been completely flipped upside down, right? It's now the supply chain in Asia is coming back online, and we're starting to see a lot of the material sourcing get easier. But at the same time, obviously, now there is shutdowns in the United States. At the same time, we haven't seen any of our factories get affected. All of them are essential businesses, and they produce a lot of critical infrastructure. So we haven't had delays on production. Honestly, the biggest problem has been just to our customers, right? Some of our customers physically can't take possession of the product that we're shipping to them because they're maybe locked out of their facilities. That's hard. We have a customer in New York, for example. That customer hasn't been in their office in a month and a half. So that's where it's been difficult. What I think has been a big lesson for people in terms of what the disruption might look like is that you just can't rely on things the way you used to be able to. Even now that China is back online, what does that really mean? At the same time, air freight is affected because there's a lot less commercial air traffic, which means that packages aren't getting delivered the way we're used to getting delivered. Obviously, there's fewer ships out there in the oceans. So even when factories around the world go back to work, global supply chains still slows down to some degree. So I don't think anybody would say it's business as usual, right?
No.
We certainly have been able to absorb the impact better than everybody else, but it doesn't mean that it's normal.
Yeah, and you've got that elastic capacity that helps you with that, and like you say, you've got optionality that very few people have to a very high level. You talk about your the factories you work with being, many of them being classed as essential, and I guess that would be true for some of your customers. How have you been involved in that fight against COVID-19? Be that PPE equipment or consumables or equipment specifically. We've seen the Defense Production Act enacted and various different things. So that manufacturing world's changed a little bit temporarily.
So I think because of our elastic capacity, we haven't had to go shut down some customers in order to produce for others. And I think look, there's been a lot of projects out there for building ventilators because we're in electronics space, so we're not as involved into basic PPE production. But in terms of ventilators, there's been a number of projects that have been prototyped through our platform. But at the end of the day, ventilators are really sensitive, mission critical and life critical devices. So to be perfectly honest, there's not a lot of ventilators that got prototyped quickly and delivered to people in hospitals. That's just not realistic. I think that we're going to see a wave of innovation because there's going to be new products conceptualized here. But do I think they're going to get to customers on time? I doubt it, right? What we have seen, though, are customers that are servicing the medical field, and they're either building medical devices, or a lot of it is just things you don't think about being important because they're not necessarily medical devices, but they're still necessary in order to open up a new hospital. So, for example, LED lighting systems, right? Demand for that went through the roof as soon as the pandemic hit, and a lot of it is because nobody slowed down building hospitals. In fact, they're building more hospitals. So that's where I was able to, we were able to rebalance the production for those customers. And this is where we can do things that just typical manufacturers can't. I was looking at one of our LED production customers, and we were literally building his product at 6 factories in parallel because he needed to get them out to these hospitals quickly. So, it's certainly not heroics, right? We were not out there in the front lines saving the world, but we had to tell our team, look, in a way, we're on the front lines of this. There's a reason why we say we're essential workers. It's not because we want to come to work; it's because we have to, right? If we stop, if we stop the supply chain production, then somebody doesn't get a hospital built, somebody doesn't get a nursing station fully automated with call buttons. There's a ton of products that are being built at MacroFab that wouldn't be reaching people that are actually in the front lines out there. So I think we got to do our part. And our team has been phenomenal, right? I've been with them in our production facility every single day, and we very quickly went from being slightly frozen and freaking out a little bit to a couple of days later, people got used to it, and we screened them at the front entry. We've eliminated all the non-essential staff. There's a ton of space in a facility, so there's a lot of social distancing. You walk in there now, everybody's wearing masks. So
I think you're one of those disruptive companies. You're used to change, and when change comes, you adapt to it quickly. So I think that's huge. So I think we're in this kind of curious, urgent stage now. We've got a medium-term stage that's kind of fixing the important, and then we've got a long-term future. Where do you see that for MacroFab, but also where do you see it for the global supply chain for electronic products?
I can't wait for the future to get here because we're still in the middle of just trying to figure out which way is up. But I think, first of all, it's not just about going back to normal life. I think it's also about starting to really think through what the better way to get things done might be, right? And I think we've been stuck in this mode, especially in manufacturing, where if you ask people what matters to them most, they'll say it's price. And when you ask them, but what are you actually gauged on? What does your job depend on? And they'll say, well, I'm actually building mission critical devices, and high quality is really important, and on-time delivery is really important, but ultimately, it's been this relentless drive to lower cost production, and I think we're gonna start rethinking a lot of that. So, as you can imagine, we talk to a lot of supply chain managers, and they're still firefighting today. Today they don't get to sit there and pontificate about what the next 2 years are going to look like. But if they catch your breath, they are talking about the fact that this has been a big lesson learned and disruption in supply chain. So they're looking forward to being able to catch your breath, maybe go on vacation, but then come back and actually rebuild their supply chain infrastructure to make it better. I think we're going to end up in a different posture. I don't think we're suddenly going to wake up in a world where all the manufacturing leaves China overnight. But do I think we're going to think about distributing that production capacity, second sourcing more, and not relying on single sourcing a lot of the components, even down to the assembly plants, right? I mean, we've always, we've built the business this way. We tell our customers, we have 50 factories. Ideally, we want all 50 to be available to you, but at least 5, right? I think that's going to be a core requirement for a lot of people going forward. Right? Why should you be slowed down because all your production happens in Indonesia when the entire world is really flat at this point, and there should be limits to where we produce it. So I think supply chain people are about to get a lot of attention. I think some of it is going to be statutory in nature. The thing I really never thought I would see is we've had an administration in the U.S. that's been talking about the importance of treating manufacturing as a domestically critical industry. But to be perfectly honest, other than tariffs, we haven't done a whole lot about it. And around the world, people have been pushing that off and thinking that's just something that America is going through and we don't have to think about it. And you know what? There was guidance that I saw from European Union talking about the need to go reshore and nearshore a lot more of the critical supply chains, not necessarily electronics specific, but certainly for PPE and medical, for example, right? I think a year from now, there's going to be a lot of laws out there, not just in the US, about where we produce most critical infrastructure. And I think these topics are about to be front and center. When you see European Union start to think about this, I think that's going to be a global phenomenon, and I think we're going to see it across the world.
Yeah, and I think that's, for me, that's absolutely fascinating, Misha. And we've seen that $2 billion, I think, from the Japanese government to move a bunch of their supply chain out of China and some of it back onshore. Like you say, Europe is likely to follow. The US has been kind of positioning itself with tariffs, but I think there's a bill going through Congress. The FDA has started to require much more visibility and information and early warning in the supply chains for medical products. Just medical devices like a home blood test device or something like that. So I think that's completely changing. One of the things I do expect is kind of a digital dividend. I expect an acceleration of digital transformation to create more of that agility and resilience. Is that something you hear from supply chain managers? And I understand they're head down in panic mode right now, but when they do have that moment to breathe.
We do, and the earliest indications of that are, I think, from the industry analysts. We've seen Kearney talk about it. Kearney primarily covers just general supply chain balance, and it was really interesting. They said even last year we saw the first year on record when manufacturing declined as proportion in China versus other parts of the world, and that was before coronavirus started. That was research published in late 2019. So the latest update is we're going to see an acceleration of that going into 2020. I think Bain is talking about it. You see it in MIT Sloan, in Harvard Business Review.
There's a lot of
about it. But I think if you actually have to, it's one thing to write about it. It's another thing to actually do it. So I think people that are actually doing it, I think their natural question is going to be, great, but how? And I think, and I do think the digital technology is the how, right? We have customers that are moving to our platform, and for them, the problem is actually very simple. Can they really afford to send their most critical employees to, be on a road 2 months out of the year? And you travel as much as some of these guys do, by the way. It's not that you don't enjoy it. It's just that I think today that travel is just more dangerous, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be dealing with a afterglow. Like, we don't have a vaccine, so for the next 2 years, travel isn't going to be something as simple as I got to go to China, I bought a ticket, and next week I'm there. It's going to be harder. So I think we're going to, Zoom has filled in that space for us in meetings, but what technology fills in that, bridges that divide when it comes down to supply chain management and manufacturing, I think it's got to be digital technologies that digitize what you're doing and then help you manage it without having to leave your office. It doesn't mean people are going to travel. It just means that it's going to be once a year visit, right? And I think this is where digital supply chain management network said, we do this. Fictive does a really good job with this as well. You can source globally, but build locally. You can, it's the ability to have optionality that I think people are going to really enjoy. For most companies 10 years ago, if you said, hey, we need you to multi-source and we want you to be internationally distributed, that actually turned into a pretty expensive proposition. Now you got to triple the size of the team, and it's double the number of flights, and now you don't. Now you can rely on a digital technology to actually manage that for you, and I think that's what the future is. I think that's how a lot of people are going to be doing business in this space as well.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think certainly through this process, there have been some digital haves and have-nots. And your customers have been amongst those haves because they've had that additional flexibility and that resilience and protection. And, that combination of agility and resilience in the supply chain is something quite special. It's rare that you can actually have both. So that's exciting.
Well, I want to be careful with that, because I think one thing people need to understand is that, there was, I'm sure you were a customer, right? When Amazon first came online, all you could buy is books. And eBay was around then, and it was just for me, being in a computing industry, it was like magic. You could buy computer stuff online and have it delivered to you. That's what this space feels like. I don't feel like we're yet at the point where it's haves and have-nots. I think we're still in very embryonic stages of what digital technology can actually do. There's a lot of really nice demos. There's a lot of really nice videos, and we've been talking about Industry 4.0 for the last 10 years. I still don't know what it is exactly. I think most people couldn't actually explain it. Push comes to shove, how much actual technology and software out there is being used. You can follow the money, right? Big industries are all about ERPs and MRPs. PLM management is still, not exactly fully usable yet. So I think we're, Bezos uses this term all the time. We're in day one of this, right? And, we're truly in day one of this. I think we have a long way to go before it gets truly digitized. And I would encourage people just to kind of throw away the terminology that doesn't make sense to you. Just think about what you have to get done and whether there's software or technology tools that can help. At the end of the day, it just comes down to, are you actually getting something done of substance, or are you just buying software that doesn't do anything for you? Right?
Yeah, so get stuff done, get stuff made, simple as. Makes perfect sense. So you've got a lot of your non-essential, your non-manufacturing team at home. How's everybody coping right now in the lockdown? What's keeping them sane? Is it lots of Zoom meetings? Are you kind of doing town halls, keeping everybody up to date?
We've always had a culture that was built for some level of distribution, and every Monday we have a company-wide meeting. It only lasts about 10 minutes, and I think if somebody came by, they would say, "Why are you wasting your time?" Look, once a month. It's birthdays, and we buy them breakfast tacos, and we do this every single week. And frankly, the topic for the last ever since January has been coronavirus. Even before it hit the United States, because we have people in Denver, we have people in Austin, we have people in Mexico. We're a small company, but we're already pretty distributed, and we know that those people need to be connected to the mothership. So it wasn't that much of a rapid change. More people ended up on remote sessions than it used to be. And I'm glad we've been doing that for a number of years, and I'm glad we've been broadcasting those company-wide meetings. So it hasn't been a super disruptive transition. People adjusted to the new working cadence pretty quickly. I think I think their personal lives are a lot more stressful than work is right now. So the team is doing great. We stay in touch with them, but I think what we're really mindful of is just how difficult home life could be, and how difficult just the simple things that just kind of went away. People haven't seen their families in a long time. Nobody can shake hands. They got to schedule their grocery store runs. So that's probably way more disruptive for our team than anything else. And it's no different than anybody else out there right now. I think it's, the effect is the same on everybody. And this is the thing that one of the benefits of having a weekly forum to speak to our team about this. The couple of months in, we've been talking about coronavirus, and my team actually had to tell me, look, you're kind of treating this as something that's happening in China, but it sure looks like it's coming here. So we really have to take a different tone with it. We got to start advising people on what they should do and how they should do it. And we started doing that a couple of weeks before the shutdowns, and I'm glad we did. My message to the team has been, look, things are starting to reopen again. It doesn't mean we're going back to normal. We don't have a vaccine. We still have a lot of people infected. It's going to be a couple of years of life interrupted. And my message to them was, find a way to live in this new world and be happy, right? Wear a mask, right? Things opening up doesn't mean the risk is going down. It means the risk is going up, right? There's more people out there. So I was like, this is no time to let our guard down. And the team has been great. We had people from Asia on the team, and they told us early on, I was like, look, you guys just don't get it still. This is not a one-time event. And, here we are 2 months later wearing masks, right? So look, they knew what was coming for us, right? So I think it's my responsibility to help the team think through that, understand how to process this, because it's pretty confusing out there. I mean, if you just watch cable news, it's conflicting messages every single day.
Yeah, you have to get some time away from work and time away from the news. And when you're working from home, sometimes the laptop's always open, and when it's not, the news is on the TV, and it's kind of a bombardment. But you're absolutely right. People have to not just think, okay, it's very short term, I'm going to be into something different in a few weeks. They've got to kind of, like you say, create a new norm for themselves and make themselves happy. Misha, whenever I come over to Houston, we normally go out, have some great Mexican food, go out to some really nice restaurants. We don't get to do that now, and you don't get to do that with your family. What are you doing to keep sane? What are you binging on TV or
it's funny,
filling your time with?
My life must have been more boring than most people, because we don't go to restaurants anymore, so that's been a major change. But other than that, there's not that much difference. I spend time with the kids, and we got a pool. And in Houston, that's an essential entertainment device. So I don't think we watch TV any more than we used to. It's a lot of TV in general. So look, the kids adjusted really well. They're going to school through Zoom now, which is.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, are they schooling from home?
No, it took them about a week or so. The school, moved very quickly. It's a small school, and they were able to just get back into it. They've even found a way to have birthday parties. They do these drive-bys where it's like 15 cars circling around somebody's house. I grew up in Moscow, and I remember vividly that the Olympics, and I think it was 1982, was a very different time, because the Soviets freaked out a little bit and sent all the kids out of the city, because they were worried that we're going to get corrupted by all of the foreign athletes. So I kind of remember that, oddly enough, fondly, as just a really weird time that was kind of fun, and I'm hoping that they do as well. It's certainly not normal, but it doesn't have to be bad either.
No, and you can take stuff from it, can't you? And I was talking to a guy in Hong Kong, and he was saying, one of the things he gets from it is that people are just looking out for each other more. People are dropping stuff around to each other's houses. He hopes there are a few things that have come out of this that have shown people improvements and will stick. So I think there's some.
I don't get robocalls anymore. I mean, how do we make that perfect?
Yeah, there you go. There's some good stuff coming out of it. Last question before we go, Misha. What advice would you offer your peers at this point?
I think we got to start thinking about things long term. I've been in the manufacturing industry for about 3 years at this point, but most of my career before this was in cybersecurity, and cybersecurity is inseparable from disaster response. If you get, I actually have a pretty good feel for how infections spread because I spent years chasing computer infections all over the world with our customers. And in a lot of ways, I know exactly how this is going to go. We're going to get through this, and we're going to get on the other side, and people are going to catch your breath, and they're going to try to find a way to go back to normal and forget this ever happened. And that's a huge mistake. I would really caution against people assuming that that this is a blue swan event and you can't predict it and it's never going to happen again. In fact, these things have been happening. We just haven't been paying attention, right? We get a major pathogen spreading at least once every 10 years. We've been fortunate. They haven't been infectious enough, and we've been able to surgically stop them. I think Ebola made its way to the United States a couple of years ago, and they stopped it in Dallas, and it never went anywhere else. We were fortunate, and when you deal with probabilities of something going wrong, you just have to assume that it will. And just because it happened yesterday doesn't mean it can't happen 24 hours from now. That's not the way probabilities work. People do make the same mistake with floods and earthquakes. We get an earthquake every 50 years or something like that. That's not actually true when it comes to probabilities. You can have an earthquake every single year. It's a coin flip every single year happens. So this is, my advice to people would be, if your job is to actually make decisions about supply chain, and you spent the last 10 years optimizing for price and optimizing for high volume, I would start thinking about what resiliency looks like. Nobody's going to let you spend unlimited amounts of money, but think about how much money we're spending now being single sourced, having production too far away. Look, most of the actual negative effects we've seen from the pandemic in general are really just downstream effects of not being ready, right? All of this can be done better if we just prepare for it. And my advice to people is don't assume that once this is over, we don't have to deal with this for a while. It's coming back. Let's not be complacent with it. This is why we do what we do. We got to go figure out a way to do it better next time, because it doesn't have to be this disruptive. A couple of thousand years ago, simple things, including pandemics, would take out vast amounts of economic activity and population. We don't have to let that happen to us. We just have to be ready for it. And I think supply chain is one of the biggest decision points there. There's a lot of decisions we make about how we're going to build things, and a lot of our problems are traced exactly to how we've done business for the last 20 to 30 years.
So disruption happens, get prepared, make the changes, be ready for the next one. Misha, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for your candor. Absolute pleasure to chat. And whoever's watching, thanks for joining us on EMS at Sea Level. Thank you.
Bill, great to see you. Thank you.